think Joel says
Oh, you went from one to okay.
Gretchen.
Then ask the clerk start at 62.
And we are live.
All right, I have 4:02, and at this time we will call the meeting of the City of Canyon to order. The City Commission of the City of Canyon to order. With that, Commissioner Potter's going to lead us in invocation, and we're going to say a special prayer to remember our dear friend Gwen Hicks. Just tremendous person in this community, started Amarillo Angels, worked at that full time for no pay for 10 years, but you know, you can just go on and on how she's reached out to the community. So we'll remember her and her family.
Please join me. Dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful to live in a community that supports each other. And we do. We lift up the Hicks family. We lift up Andy. And we're so grateful for what Gwen has done for this community and for so many young people throughout the years. And she'll be missed. And we do. We lift up Andy and his family. And we want to support them. Lord, we just help us today to make great decisions for this community, and just give us the strength to endure and to work for the people of Canyon. And we love you and love the city of Canyon. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Every heart, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, with that, we're going to begin our budget work session. And Joe, do you want to kick us off here?
We're just following up from our last discussion on this. Mr. Ryan's going to kind of rehash and summarize where we went to where we are. I do think we're going to have quite a bit of dialogue on the fire department, so I've got Chief Quinn queued up, whether he realizes it or not. But we'll have some dialogue on, since we talked about full-time firefighters this last go-around. So, further ado, I'll let Mr. Ryan go ahead and get us going.
Most of the civic duty is secure number one, child care. So we got selected yesterday. So hopefully I can fill in for this place well. To start with, just a reminder where we're at on smoothed out, like the actual tax revenue calculation based on the certified values. We got a update from the county for our share of the communications agreement. It was slightly less than what we were projecting. So we went ahead and put those changes in there. The net difference of all those changes wasn't significant. These were the most significant changes that we made from the last copy of the budget that we received. So after we made these changes, Joe C. Major asked Fire Chief to weigh in on his thoughts about having a full-time firefighter as opposed to starting the fire prevention program. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to him and let him speak to that and what his thoughts are.
Good afternoon. First off, this was not an easy decision to come to. Chief Whitfield, Captain Root, and I have discussed this, I don't know, for over a month now. We appreciate the full-time firefighter position, the one. However, at this time, we decided that we would like to get our CWPP program going for the city of King. We believe that it's going to provide a much comfortable space for us should we get hit in another Hungate fire incident or any type of fire approaching the city limits that's out of control. I'm going to back up a little bit to the Fritch fire, 2-3 years ago, and go to the city of Borger. The city of Borger had a very active CWPP program, and as that fire was approaching their west city limits, they had very little to worry about. We were not in that situation back during that big fire. We believe by getting our CWPP program active, now's the time to do it, because one of our most difficult areas of town basically got burned into. And we have a lot of vegetation control out there right now. If we can get back on that and keep that under control, and then continue that on around the south side of the city, wrap it around the east side of the city, and just continue that mitigation program, or not continue, but start it up while we have kind of a since, like I said, the west side and the south side got burned up too, so we have a head start. That's where I'm trying to go with that. In addition to the mitigation work that this team would be doing, it will bring possibilities for us. The more active our program is, the more eligibility we have for some USDA grant funding to support the program. That could even equate into additional firefighting equipment for that purpose, as well as it be available for extra equipment on the large grass fires. But we just believe now's the time to do that, and that it will provide great protection for our citizens. Like I said, it's a tough decision giving up a full-time firefighter, with all how far behind we are. But we believe now's the time to get this program going. Any questions on that?
What does it take to get that program going? Is that what
Well, there'll be, should it start, we'll have a full-time, part-time, year-round part-time person that's the coordinator for that program. They'll go in and talk to our landowners that come up to the city limits and start working towards agreements, explaining the program so that we can get on their private property and do mitigation work. That person will start updating or building burn plans for, and it's not all burn. Some of it's mechanical mitigation, come in and mowing and cutting down trees, shrubs, things like that. Some of it could even be chemical mitigation, where we come in and put some ground treatments down. But we'll get those agreements in places, get those plans in place, and then when it comes time in the, I would say, late winter into the spring before green up, we have plans in place, and that's where the seasonal technicians will come in to assist with those projects. And then continue throughout whatever time we have working on other mitigation projects.
choice amongst these three choices.
Mr. Wright, anything else you want to go over? Was everything going to be just a repeat?
Yeah, like I say, no significant changes from last time we presented this. Really, these were the only matters that were changed at this point. The tax rate, we'll cover the tax, we'll talk about this more in a minute. But the tax rate that we proposed to you in the original was 53 cents. The actual is slightly less after we got the certified values. I'm sorry, it's 54. The total tax rate is now 53. So it did drop a little bit from where we were in that original budget that we proceeded to. Currently, the tax rate that would go with this proposed budget is 0.53413 per 100, and that's a 4.4% increase. That would be a 0.41795 M&O, and then the debt service rate of 0.1169 for a total of 0.534. And that gives us an increase in revenue from the prior year, 25-26, of $325,000. Where that increase would go. Let me cover that again if you have questions on that.
Yeah, Joe, can you cover where that goes right now? That's
So
going to be in paper too.
So we had an increase in budget personnel costs, $467,000. You're saying, well, that's way more. Well, there's a lot of different things that contribute. There's some ups and some downs. So we had increase in the budgeted personnel costs. That includes a 3% merit increase for all all non-police personnel. And then on the police department, we were implementing the step pay for the increases that are part of that program. Also, the cost of living adjustment that's in that program that we adopted last year, using the CPIW adjustment, that's 2.6%. And then as those different police employees, the officers, as their wages move to the next step in the scale, we've got that budgeted for each of those changes throughout the year when they reach their anniversary. So the total increase on all of that, and including benefits for where we know our health plan, we've got some increase in the health plan, also a slight decrease on the retirement contribution. So the net cost of all of that is a $467,463 increase. that we've purchased and is in process of delivery. We'll begin saving for the next one. Is what we're proposing to do with 10,000 starting in this budget. We have we're budgeted to purchase 2 patrol units for police out of the capital equipment fund, so that's going to add to their lease expense, or the internal lease expense of $29,400. We have annual payment to the equipment fund for the street department. We're going to be we're budgeting to purchase a new dump truck, actually a used dump truck for the street department, so we'll have a $5,500 increase in those payments. We have a new mandate from the Amarillo Health District that we need to comply with. It's going to cost an additional $35,000 a year, so we needed to add that. We're also working toward pre-funding replacement of the servers for the city. We're proposing to do that over 2 years, so $50,000 in 26-27, another $50,000 in 27-28. Estimated purchase price today is going to be over $100,000 for that cost, and likely higher with the cost of IT equipment. We know we have to replace a community center HVAC unit. That's going to be $10,500. We have $24,000 for a water conservation consultant that we have engaged at the city's at the commission's directive to begin working up some policies and looking toward water conservation. A big unknown that's on our radar right now is complying with the EPA's lead and copper regulation compliance. We're budgeting $51,536 for that. We don't know exactly what all that is going to cost us. We've got some clarification on what the city's responsibility is for that, but we're still not sure what our actual cost is going to be. It could be 100, 150. Just that depends on availability and time of a third party that we might engage to help us with that. $10,000 we've budgeted for wastewater farm moisture monitors. Budgeted $12,500 for the transfer to the CIP utility fund for water line plate replacement and also wastewater line replacement. And this is an annual amount that we're proposing to set aside for those replacements as they come about. We don't have any definite replacement projects, but we know that we've got an aging system that needs to be maintained. And so that cost is definite. We're also setting aside $50,000 to transfer to the CIP utility fund for the purchase of land easements. As those opportunities come up and we can purchase land easements for a utility right-of-way, then we'll be in a position where we can take advantage of that. We have $100,000 transferred to the utility CIP fund to pre-fund a possible wastewater treatment facility expansion. We're getting very close to the population point where we're required to start planning general fund CIP as we prepare for the 15th Street Phase 1 NPO project at TxDOT. We need to have that cash available and ready when that project kicks off. And then we also have a built-in contingency, $214,000. This is honestly something we put in the budget every year, and it always gets cut just out of necessity. But we put a contingency in here for things that we don't know is going to happen. Hailstorms, and tornadoes, and windstorms, and the things that we seem to encounter every year that cost us money that we didn't budget for, things we didn't plan for. So that's in here, and then we're also budgeting after the hailstorm of last June 25. We've built up the contingency for insurance of $50,000, and that is just to cover the cost of. We have a $1,000 deductible on every vehicle, and so if we fix even a majority of our vehicles, we'll reach that $50,000 pretty easily. So we're budgeting to set that aside as a contingency fund in order to accommodate those type of storms in the future. Those are the highlights. We do have some other things that went down. So if you add all those up, that's way more than our $325,000 proposed increase in tax revenue. But the net effect of all of that, we're able to cover that with the $325,000 increase in property taxes, because we have increases in other line items as well. So sales tax revenue, there's some decrease there. But those two being the most significant changes probably on revenue. Those are the highlights, for sure. Again, none of that changed significantly from the last presentation that we brought to you. The numbers that did change were these three lines that we talked about here at the beginning. With full-time firefighter and deputy secretary. And again, that deputy secretary, that is to prepare for the retirement of Gretchen. It's to have someone in place getting trained, have them prepared to take over when she requires.
Bill, do you have the line item? Do you have that in front of you by chance? I have a couple of questions on the line items. Chief Brush, you're asking for $10,000 more in overtime. Is that just equate to the kind of ratio out the increase in salaries to match the salary increase, or are you lacking an overtime budget? Both. Okay.
We've been lacking an overtime budget for a couple of years, and plus with the increase in salary, the amount of overtime hasn't really gone down, and so we were behind it.
So that 80,000 isn't last year, your full year? Okay. And y'all comp timing or just making people take off, or how y'all doing it?
Officers are paid time and a half, and holiday pay, what call that,
Okay.
on the circumstances. But they're paid money.
Okay.
They don't, mostly some of the school resource officers take comp time, but most everybody else takes.
I don't have a problem with the increases. I figured that's what it was. The drop in municipal court salary?
Yes. So there was last year, we had a part-time bailiff, if I recall.
He was full-time.
That was full-time, sorry. He left, and that position was not refilled. And we were proposing that position be eliminated.
So there's no reason the city manager's line items, that drop in retirement? I don't know which, if you're... it doesn't look a ratio to Social Security retirement.
So I think that is associated, so 511, 512 are our, one's wastewater collection, one's wastewater treatment. I think through the years, we've had different employees that maybe, in reality, they end up serving both those departments, or probably merge those departments. But we do have a $9,400 decrease in 511.
Okay, so that's where that's.
And I have a 13,000 increase,
Okay.
and the net is probably the increase in our rates.
So go to the next account, 525, with information technology. Look at the Social Security and retirement there compared to the salaries. Am I just looking at those incorrectly because I don't understand those numbers, or should those be pretty ratioed out? That's a large, that's like a double retirement. Close to both, it's doubled on both of them, really, doubled in Social Security and retirement. And but the salary increases about 1%.
So just looking back over, we may have been behind on budgeting for that, because we went through those changes. If you're looking at the same plan, so you see the 22, 23, that used to be 84,000 for salary.
Right.
And then we added a full-time position, 23, 24.
Right.
So we had some turnover in that position, so we added another. In 24, 25, we increased that some. So now we're up to the 189 is what we're at this year.
Yeah, but that's still
It's
just a
actually
1%.
dropping, so.
It's still just a 1% increase.
Yeah.
So those Social Security retirement numbers, 24, 25 to 25, 26 match.
We need to check that.
I mean, as a thought,
Yeah. No, you're right.
they really should be similar, right? They should be
Right.
similar or lower.
They should be.
Because there hasn't been any change in FTEs in that department, right? That's what
We'll double check that.
Mayor Pro Tem, would y'all like to hear from the municipal court judge with regard to that budget item? She is here today.
Yeah, great, Chuck. Chuck had brought to me that there was an item that thought that we ought to look at. There's a $3,000 item for jury, something solitary, so.
For sure, and
Chuck, you probably just address it.
I can, and I've been listening to some discussion about the municipal court budget. There are certain state mandated funds that should be under the control of the municipal court judge. That should be under her control because, in fact, there is a memo that she wrote on that. Would you not test that? That I'd like for the commission to look at, because really what needs to happen is the judge needs to have the ability to move that money around within her budget, because there are state regulations on how those funds are used. And in fact, the judge and the city attorney in Decatur wrote a memo that was presented to TMCEC on that subject. So really, I think it probably would benefit the commission to hear directly on how those funds need to be used, because there are some state laws that impact on that. So in any event, the $3,000 item for the jury notification software, I think, is important because citizens of Canyon are summoned to attend jury duty. Okay, the software that we're talking about, and that is referred to on the second page of that memo, gives them the ability to check in online, or it gives them online access to check in and follow the progress of what goes on in municipal court. In other words, whether or not they need to show up for jury duty. Occasionally, we have situations where trials are canceled, and we don't want jurors having to show up not knowing if trials are canceled or not. I think right now the practice is put it on Facebook and put a recording on the municipal court phone. But if this software were in place, jurors would not only have the ability to check in online, so you know who's coming for jury duty in advance, whether or not they're claiming exemption, whether or not they're claiming that they can't make it for some reason on that particular occasion. They can interact on that point. But also, if trial is canceled, then they can be advised online in advance, so they don't show up. The last time we had a cancellation, even despite the best efforts to notify everybody, 7 or 8 people still showed up. They walked up to the door, there was a note on the door, they turned around and left. So they've taken off work and come to jury duty, which is good on them. I mean, I appreciate the fact that they're honoring that summons for jury service, but we need a better way to notify them. So the software we're talking about is only $3,000, and I think it would be awesome to include that in the budget. So that's my contribution on that. With regard to staffing, I mean, that would have to be addressed with the judge.
Was that a staffing change y'all wanted to make? You don't feel like you need a bailiff? Or?
Well, we would like a bailiff, of course. Our bailiff went to Pantex, and we're suffering the same thing that the police department had. He just got paid a lot better at Pantex. You're looking at the security a lot of times at municipal court. When we have to have court, we hire part-time people, contract employees, and that is getting hard to find too, because the people who we're using are out at Pantex and they don't need the money, so we're having difficulty finding that contract employees.
Would you need a part-time bailiff or a full-time bailiff?
Yeah, I think we could do it with a part-time bailiff.
Have y'all posted that and tried to recruit somebody? Or?
No, it's been cut, so we didn't do that.
Okay.
Instead of going to the 6 months.
Just one comment on this. We have the court has 2 fees. They have 3 fees. There's 2 fees. There's a municipal court technology fund, and there's also a municipal court security fund. And through the years, for many years, those funds weren't really being used. But over the past 4 years, 35 years, those funds began to be used and were spent down, especially when the bailiff position was added a couple of years ago. We actually spent that municipal court security fund down. In the last legislature, the legislature combined those 2 fees. So now the fee amount didn't change, but that fee is now collected for municipal court technology and court security. You don't have to have one fee doing one thing and one fee doing another. That one fee can do either at the court's discretion, the city's discretion. So what we're proposing is to build that fund balance back up. Right now, we've over this past year, the combined fee has built back up to about $12,000. That's where we're at right now. We've created a new fund now to account for that, the combined fee. So those funds, we haven't really budgeted specifically for those. We're allowing for those funds to get replenished a little bit, but that is there. It's available for
So we can use that for $3,000 in.
It wouldn't, that amount
$10,000, it seems like that's a pretty good convenience for our citizens on, you know, the jury notification, helping on the other end of that.
And if I might, that jury software is the same software that Randall County's using. So our jurors are already very familiar with that software. So that's a good benefit too.
So I've used the Randall County software.
Right.
Thoughts on the security piece and part-time bailiff?
When did you lose him? When did he go to Benton?
We lost him in, I believe, in July. And the only way...
Of this year?
No, last year. So, if I might say. So, the position for the court, we did put that out. We've asked every person that we know that's retired or whatever. Part-time position, I agree with the judge, that is something we need. I think that we need to, instead of taking away those funds, allow us to use what we already had before this cut. That'll allow us to get somebody in. I mean, the bailiff, which you're right, we take on, but I've taken on the collection aspect of all of that and the security. You have Brooklyn and if I can't get an off-duty officer, where we are sitting over in the community center with anybody that's not looking. Same thing with the judge. So we have a list of some people that will help us out. I mean, Chief Bott from Timber Creek, he's where I get my off-duty people, former CPD. So they already know, they already have the court security training. To take that piece away, you're in law enforcement, we know what people are like when they can instantly have contact with you when they're upset about something. Brooklyn's new to this. She hasn't faced some of the backlash from having to deal with some complaints, family violence and stuff. To take away our court security, you're leaving us to defend ourselves when we have in court. We are great. We were allowed to use those funds when we built the office in 2022 when we went over there. We are inofficial, as I like to say. I mean, we are very well protected as long as we stay within that area. You put us out, that is a different piece, that's a different aspect in which we're having to face and make determinations. I mean, I've been doing this for 16 years. I think a lot of people are afraid of me, vice versa. But it really is concerned that we're going to take that all away without a discussion as far as what it means to us and our security sitting there, having somebody that's come in on a family violence charge, and they're already upset that complaint was accepted. The jury software, that's great. I don't know if nobody has had to stand and have somebody yell at them because they didn't get the notice because they don't get on Facebook, or we don't do that. Those are direct complaints that I take, but my hands are tied. We don't have that software. So that would be an asset if we could have that. There's another piece we're missing out on, and that is our recording software. We're a court of record now. We have to maintain that recording element that we have for our trials and everything. So I just feel like I would ask that you please consider just leaving us with what we have to work with to try and find somebody that we can get. We have 3 or 4 people that we've been talking to see if they will come back and work part-time with us. But we don't pay like Amarillo or Pantex to allow them to have those $100 an hour, or I don't even know what off-duty officers you're getting anymore.
So your rate on even off-duty officer per hour is
Exactly.
a lot lower.
That's right.
They're actually market.
Yeah, so like I said, that's a hard ask. I'm relying on right now, to be honest, our court security. I'm relying on the goodness of ex-CPD officers to come in and assist me. Chief Bott, like I said, with Timber Creek, he throws out all my court dates and asks who can come in. The one officer that we do have on
defendants. If we know that we can't get a court security officer for a certain day, we'll move defendants. But it's also been something where we have a full docket of defendants lined up, and then we were just relying on someone in the goodness of their heart to show up and be there, and then they canceled. Their kid got sick, they had to go get him from school, all the up, and then we've got 15 defendants sitting there, and me and a folding table and Sheila, but in like a room full of defendants. So it's just one of those where if we had something where we could make somebody have a little bit more of a reliable commitment to us, that would also really, really help.
That position could also be trained as a clerk. So in other words, when Sheila's out on vacation or unavailable for some reason, that person could book in citations at the window, to work the window.
That's also something we've experienced. So if Miss Sheila's out, we have like standing understandings where if you got a ticket for your registration being out, but it was within 30 days of it being out, and you bring me proof that you got your registration renewed within 30 days, I'll drop your ticket. You don't have to deal with it. Well, Miss Sheila informs the citizen of something like that, and then the next time the citizen comes in, they are not met with Miss Sheila, they're met with the judge. Well, the judge cannot hear any evidence with the matter or accept any proof like that, so they come then frustrated that they got stonewalled, and it's just the fact that our only backup individual to work a window and interact with citizens is our judge, who has to remain completely neutral. That's hard.
I think we've got a great need here, and I think we need to figure out a way to cover it.
We don't security
Previous police, so we'll punch it down, we're going to paint it.
Yeah, but I'm just from my experience, at 35 an hour, they're not gonna do that.
Right, and I don't know. I'd be supportive of a part-time, but would not be supportive of a full-time position.
You know, and this, and you all can go out, that's something we really need, but the 6 months on city secretary, to me, that's kind of a luxury. I think it's nice to have a training period, but that's a place that I think we still could grab some bucks and all that. So what would that look like as far as what dollar number does that take to plug in there for a part-time? What are we looking at?
Joe, your commissioner, I don't know, is Hector in here? Yeah, he's right there.
Part-time for a bailiff, I'd have to figure out 20 hours a week and what the hourly salary is gonna be. If it's something similar to what we were paying Robert, the easy way to do that was just to divide that in half. And if they are gonna be a true part-time, they have to be limited to less than 29 hours a week and all that, which would then keep them from being eligible for benefits and retirement. So, I mean, we wouldn't have to pay those, but it all depends on what the hourly salary is going to be.
Robin, and your thoughts as far as kind of what we plug in then? Where would you start?
I don't know about salary-wise how that was. I was just looking at the hourly rate.
Right,
From my
an
own
hourly rate.
experience of what we hire for, and that's significantly lower than what we pay security in the school district. So
And what level would you say that is?
Yes, it is. For both Williams County and it's about an hour for
So if we figure 55 times 20 times a week, what?
On the weekend ones, it's almost there. There's the one they're going on this last time.
Well, I think even if we couldn't find a part-time bailiff, if the rate was the amount it needed to be based on what they're gonna ask for, you might be able to find something to fill in and keep someone. I can see them not, just from my experience, that amount per hour is hard to find someone to take. And we experienced that until everything was raised and it got a little easier, but they just don't, they can find extra work other places, making more money, so while they get something 35 on.
Looking at 29 an hour.
I don't know
30.
That's just salary.
What at 20 a week?
Which that's all we have to pay.
What was?
Can't calculate off the officer like that.
57,200.
Our $5 an hour employee rate's not the same as hiring a part-time.
And we can say it's gonna be different, so I don't know, I mean, that should be like an off-duty rate, that's gonna be different. Based on salary schedule.
So if we were to address it, what do we need to do to come up with a number?
We look at our pay scale and all that, but catcher's usually the one that provides those. Let's put that on the spot.
Do we need to come back with that?
I mean, we can adjust.
We can work these changes in and try to keep it within what we've got in total right now. And work it with those choices in place and have that ready for maybe.
Yeah.
Either August 10th.
Yep.
August 10th for the public hearing and budget adoption.
I do have one other substantial request, and I visited with Joe about it a little bit, but a couple things got my attention in a meeting with Chris here. We can ask Joe, and the thing that really, and two things. I think we need to bring water back pretty quick on the agenda. I think just where we're at right now, record pumping. We haven't drilled any wells in 10 years. Brown roads on decline. I think we need to figure out how to get those wells online over here on the other side of Kim Road. Nicholas Road.
Yeah.
I know we've got that in the grant. I think we can go ahead and move forward and figure out how we're going to pay for it one way or another. And we've got them engineered now, so I think we can move forward with that. So that's one piece, but really the concern I have that I think really is a fit in the budget, just the comment that Chris made that really hadn't hit me. We've got the well we drilled there at Spring Canyon, and that's in half-acre lots. So, yeah, it would have been a lot better if we would have put a line out to where we wouldn't have to dig through, those bar ditches and all too, and tunnel underneath if we'd done that to start with. But now, it hadn't hit me. We're now going to urban lots. And Chris made the comment, really concerned that we really even have the ability, can we drill a well in those urban lots? And then how do you get a pipeline? I mean, then you're going under roads and all too. So the one I have for the budget today is Spring Canyon, unit number 4, where we're doing all the work right now on all the septic system up there. I think it makes sense to do a change order and put in that pipeline. And talking to Joe, maybe that's 50,000 or so, something like that, to get that line out to the VFW or where that needs to go. I think that's something. This whole deal on water, I think we need to bring back. It's a bigger deal. It's not really a budget item. How to pay for it, I think, is a question. But then we've got all the Phantom Creek wells and all too. That if all that takes off, we've got the same issue there. So we've got this is a piece I think we've got to figure out to get out of that, the length.
The density of the lots. So we at least have a little room to do the well in unit 4, which is right next to commercial. Right. We still have a little bit, and obviously the one in Spring Canyon has been done. We'll have to open the ditches to do some of that line work.
But if we could do the line work now while they're building all that out, if we can do that, do it as a change order, that's going to save a lot of money versus the board and all that. So, and they're already putting in pipeline there. So,
the financial piece is the biggest challenge.
So I think that's where I would take that out of this contingent piece or whatever. If that's 50,000, we're going to double our expense here in a year if we don't figure out how to do that. I think. So. Chris, your thoughts? Did I misread what you're saying as far as those?
I think the bigger challenge might actually be trying to drill a well when you've got development going on around it, right? Because it requires quite a bit of space for tailwater pit and whatnot. Yeah, it's not ideal to have to go back to put transmission lines, or whatever, in an area that's already been developed. It can be done, but you wind up with a situation similar to what we've got right now in Spring Canyon, right? You got houses, it's a disruption to the people that live there. Having to put that sewer lines or not, they lose access to driveways. So, yes, that is a piece of it. I think, in my opinion, the big concern is actually drilling the wells before development occurs around there. As Joe mentioned, we do have the luxury in Unit 4, because the commercial parking there, it gives us a little bit more space, right?
We've had quite a bit of discussions on that.
Yeah, so to be able to do the cover up and whatnot that we need there for the drilling process. Those are also half-acre lots, up to Section 4 half-acre lots, right? So, you have more space there. When you get to Van Creek or not, then the development is a challenge.
So I think it's something we need to talk about on the agenda here at a future meeting and all, but I guess my question is, does it make sense to, if it would take, while we've got Wampler up there, but does it make sense to spend $50,000 out of this, to go ahead and get it to the edge?
I haven't looked at it lately with Mr. Wright, but last time we looked at the CO, we were minus 178 on the CO, so we should.
You are right, we do have a contingency for units
We could go back. I just think, it probably is, I would guess, to go in and bore it versus go ahead and ditch it right now. I really think that could cost twice as much, and we're there doing it, and it's not like we're talking about $200,000. I think it's worth doing that piece. And then I think we need to come back in and we need to talk about, before they start really developing Phantom Creek and its piece, how would we pay for 4 wells, plus transmission lines? So it would be 4 if you go ahead and drill Unit 4. So, anyway, I think that's a discussion for another day, but for the budget piece, I think it makes sense to look at doing a change order and getting that done after putting in pipeline.
Makes sense to, if you're able to do it while the water there, so we start over again, just extra cost if we're able to.
Everybody's supportive of that change. You might even be able to do some of the piping for the other ones that we could get all of them here. Might take it to, Chris. 14 Eric, you guys think that might get both?
For 38 and 39?
Just piping.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. I think that's something just
Would you
makes
rather have
sense.
the pipe or the well? Because you're getting close to having at least half the
I think
money area.
I would probably like to do the pipe while we can just do it in a ditch and then come back around and, in the next 6 months and see what we can do to figure out some wells. So,
Still, the hard part is where we're at on those wells and elevation, there's nowhere to take it. So we're still trying to figure that out.
I know, that's another tough piece.
Yeah. So we're having vast conversations on that. I'm trying to do that.
My concern after that conversation, it'd be a nightmare. We paid $1,750 an acre for those water rights, I think on both, about that. And if we felt like we were boxed in, we couldn't drill the wells. we just can't go there. So I think it's something we've got to look at. That's not something we've got to figure out today.
The city staff does have that same very much concern. We've worked with the Hamiltons and their engineer about some of the transmission lines and some of this on this very southern edge of their Bantam Creek line. So there has been good joint conversation with just coming up with several millions more to do that. And we still believe the current cost effective is to build another pump station on the west side of town. And Chris and Eric have had conversations with that as well, Joe. Probably $5 million. We're just guessing at that. And the pipeline that we're putting in Myra Park that eventually gets out there could serve as the catalyst to get back into the system. Did I miss anything, Mr. President?
That'd be a pump station and a ground storage tank.
The tough part to me, I think it could mean, and I've thrown this out to Joe, it could mean an increase in the water rates, 5 to 10% increase to take care of debt service to get some of this done. But I don't know, I think it's something we've got to take a look at. So.
Moving to August 10th, we will take that 214 and look at the cost estimate to see if we can at least do unit 4, if not even 38 wells, 38 lines. So it's more than
Just get it to
yes.
Very good. Thank you.
So can I recap real quick?
Yes, that's great.
What's the decision on the fire? To go with the control program, or you want to keep it full-time?
I think with their recommendation, they know they need better than I do, so I'm sorry, but that's the difference.
Yeah, you're on the front line.
So we'll work that in. We'll leave the deputy secretary at 3 months and use that 3-month portion to work toward a part-time bailiff. We'll work in the 3,000 for the voter software for municipal court, and we work in 50,000 to 214,000 for pipeline.
Yeah, we'll get some of those estimates pretty quick. Very good. If you have permission to move forward to get those estimates, we can move it on.
The 6-month change for the city secretary line trade bill, is that
No, there'll be some,
well,
there may be some savings here in this 525 here.
which will have to fund next year?
So
It's not a temporary, like the 3 months is for her, it's gonna be a temporary. It's temporary this year, but next year I'll have to fully funded it.
it'll change our future plans.
Yeah.
Anything else that I've missed? The things that got done.
Not a budget item, but I'd like for this to be discussed as an agenda item, so we really understand what they're actually asking us for. Because it sounds like they're wanting to change some funding sources and things like that. Doesn't get me left off the table. If this is something we need to discuss, it needs to be agenda item. I don't want us to get left off. Just really move on from this budget.
All right. Well, I think that has us for today. We've gone over a little bit, but I think that's some good discussion. We'll go ahead and, unless anybody just needs a break, we'll just go ahead and move on into the regular session. So.
Can we get off the front row real quick?
Thank you all. All right, that takes us to item number 5, approval of the minutes of the meeting of July 7th, 2026. We have a motion second to approve minutes as written. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Okay. Item number 6, public comments from interested citizens. Gretchen, looks like we've got some sign-in, but for particular items. So when we get to item number 8, we will address that. So it's item 7 and 8. I don't know if we do that together. We'll address it, item number 7. So, with that takes us to item number 7. Consider and take appropriate action on ordinance number 1255, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Kingman, Texas, amending section 98.15 relating to conditions of permits, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Gretchen, are you running with us?
I'll run with it here. We had some information brought to our attention. Previously, we weren't aware that alcohol was being served at Fair on the Square and Farmers Market. And when it was brought to our attention, it kind of triggered some things that we should have been dealing with on the city side. One of those things that started the conversation is the TABC requires a letter from the property owner to give permission for alcohol to be sold on their property. So apparently other entities were signing off on those letters, and if we had been getting those, we would have known then what was going on. We kind of helped alleviate or make it where this wouldn't have gone this way. On searching through what our rules were for alcohol sales on the square, I found that our event permit ordinance prohibited any consumption of alcohol on the square before noon. So in talking, we've got Kicks and Giggles and the Tap Truck, and you're with Hillrace. These are the main people. Pandaseta, I think, is also serving some beer at these events. We felt it would be prudent to go ahead and change that ordinance. The only thing we would change is the service of or consumption of alcohol could start at 8 a.m. This is going to be like your mimosas, Bloody Marys, things like that people like to have. So I think staff was pretty much in support of that. One thing about the event permit that I'll be updating upon approval from you all on all of this tonight is first the letters. The event sponsors, it's their responsibility to make sure that anybody serving alcohol knows that they have to submit the letter. I did include in the packet a form letter that we'll send to each of them, and they can fill that out. It meets all the criteria for the city and for TABC and brings us into compliance on that point. It does state in the ordinance that, and in the permit, that we can require fencing for an event with alcohol or liquor or whatever. Chief Brush has expressed that he would like to see that happen. So Mark with Tap Truck, and I guess all of y'all are together, they have some posts that they sent, and they would put them at each of the corners, and it would simply have signs that on both sides that said no alcohol past this point. TABC allows us to make the decision on if that's appropriate, which Joe and I looked at it, and we think it meets the criteria, so we would be fine with that. The other thing Chief Brush is expressed concern about is the need for police presence. Our ordinance currently states that if there's 100 more people, that one officer is required to be on the property. If there's over 100, 2 officers. And these would be off-duty officers that would be paid by the event sponsor. So, however, Farmers Market or Fair on the Square wanted to handle that, that would be up to them how to pay that. But the chief is wanting to make sure that we're abiding by that caveat. We also discussed that as big as Farmers Market is getting, not this year, but next year, he would like to have some presence there anyway, regardless, just because there's thousands of people there, which is great. Farmers Market is successful, and we're happy to see that, but we have to keep our community safe at the same time. So
discussion right now on this ordinance, 1255, we're just proposing to just change that time from noon to 11 to make it from 8 a.m. to 11, where consumption could be done with an event permit on the square. And then we'll enforce everything else.
Okay, thank you, Gretchen. Let's go ahead and hear from the citizen who signed in, or I guess, looks like you live in Midland, Nicole, but Nicole, is it Mercure?
Yes. If
Would
I
you
could-
like to come?
Yeah, she's, Sips and Giggles is one of they serve, they actually basically lease the food truck and then the bartender, but it's under El Rey, which is your company, and so that's allowable by CABC, as long as they have a brick and mortar CABC permitted property. So this is allowable, that's why she's from Midland.
Yes, if you would come, state your name and address.
Okay, my name is Nicole Markier, and I own 2 TABC licenses, one for a restaurant and one for a historical venue here in Texas. And today I'm speaking on behalf of myself, Brittany, owner of Sips and Giggles, Noble Bartending, and Mark Morrow, owner of Amarillo Top Truck. And we are here just under the consideration of an amendment to the ordinance numbers 1021 and 1088. And we are encouraged by the discussion surrounding alcohol allowing sales beginning at 8 a.m. like Gretchen mentioned. But at this point, our primary concern is no longer the time restriction, as we discussed. As we are aware, after our meeting with city officials, the city very much would like to change the time constraints, which is our impression of that. And our focus has shifted to the cost and responsibility for security. If this amendment is adopted, the police presence requirement would take effect immediately with an estimated cost of approximately $500 to $600 per event. And while we fully support maintaining a safe environment for the community, we do agree public safety should always be a priority. But we respectfully believe that the responsibility for event security should rest between the event organizer and the property owner, not with a third-party vendor who is simply participating in the event. And under the current ordinance 1088 section 3, it states, quote, events having an attendance of 100 persons or less shall require one off-duty officer to work security. In events of more than 100 persons, as Gretchen mentioned, an attendance shall require 2 off-duty officers. The event shall pay the cost of these security officers or officers assigned at an hourly rate per officer that is set by the chief of police. The chief of police also has the discretion to waive that security fee, end quote. So that requirement exists because of the size of the event itself. It doesn't exist because alcohol is present. And the city's own discussions have acknowledged that the farmers market has grown significantly over the years, and this growth has created the need for more police presence. So additionally, ordinance number 1021 section 98.11, additional city services part A on page 5, says the chief of police will determine what extent additional police services are needed based on size, location, duration, time, and date of the event. Number 2, history of the event. Number 3, need to detour citizen travel. And last but not least, number 4, presence of alcohol. So it goes on further to say in part B, and this is I think the main point that we really want to discuss, Brittany, Mark, and I. Part B states, quote, if possible without disruption of ordinary police services or compromised public safety, regularly scheduled on-duty personnel will police the event, which to my understanding has been the case thus far for roughly the last 2 decades, I think, since this ordinance was put in place back in the 2005, I think is when that began. So the city has been waiving the security fee required by the event ordinance because it would pose a burden on the farmers market. And the most notable part should be section C on page 6, which states the responsibility for event fees lies with the applicant, and that they shall pay the estimated charge associated with the additional city expenses to the city. So therein lies the responsibility of the event host to the property owner. And to wrap that up, we recognize that the chief of police has the discretion to require additional police services when circumstances warrant. We fully respect that authority. Our request is simply that the cost of those additional requirements remain the responsibility of the event itself, not third parties. And we strongly believe the security benefits the entire event with or without the presence of alcohol. And due to those benefits, event fees should be spread across all vendors in the least. So, I mean, we pray that the city consider providing flexibility for nonprofit community events such as the farmers market, whether through reduced officer rates, a cost-sharing arrangement, or allowing one officer to work alongside a licensed private security guard, just as an effort to reduce those costs. And we hope that there's an opportunity to balance public safety with financial realities faced by small businesses and nonprofit organizations.
Thank you.
Gary, the permit for the event, special event permit, puts, as she cited, the event sponsor is the one responsible to pay for any security or anything that's needed. So that would really be up to the event sponsor.
How they're going to raise that money.
Correct. We can't make that decision for the event sponsor. As far as alcohol, creating the need for that, that's with any event permit, I believe. I don't have that pulled up. If there's alcohol, it requires police. So any of your church, school events, anything that has alcohol, it requires police presence. The chief can waive that. I think that would be a discussion he had to leave, so I can't speak on his behalf. Matt, I don't know if you want to add to that, or
Sure.
Matt's our captain.
On the waiver fees?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think that kind of ties in directly with what Commissioner Jones kind of pointed out, that would cause quite an impact on our overtime budget, because ultimately that's what we need to have officers come out there. If it helps at all, I mean, one of the things as a police department, what we're trying to identify is not just critical infrastructure, but also soft targets. And this event, I mean, it's been very successful, which is great. I've been out there several times with my family, and there's easily several hundred people out there. Much like the reason why we supply security services to the school. It's not in the event something, it's not reactive, it's more of a proactive stance where something does happen. We have officers immediately on scene, and the reason we ask for 2, especially in large numbers, is that other officers are going to end up getting dispatched as well. You know, we do provide this service occasionally for different events that kind of come up. This is a regularly scheduled event that comes up pretty much every weekend consecutively, which is a pretty tight commitment on our part. The officers usually drop by because they like to do it just like me. They like to go and just kind of see what's going on and kind of walk through. But the problem we always run into is that those officers are out on like any kind of major crime scene or a major crash. We're always going to be shifting our priorities on what's going on. So something where there might be a fight or a theft or something like that, that might be on the lower end of scale on priorities, it's going to cause a delay depending on what we've got going on. But if we have officers dedicated to the event, that is going to be their main priority. So hopefully that kind of explains a little bit on the number of officers and the commitment it would take on the city. Does that answer your question?
I think so. On the waiver of that, do you see the police department feeling comfortable?
Well, I hate to make that decision. That is a serious commitment on the city's part.
No, I'm talking about waiver of requirement. To have it there?
Well, I would say it's the police department's position that because of the size and the growth of the event itself, it's probably past due to have dedicated police officers.
So it would just have to be, that is something that has to be addressed through the event permit by the event sponsor.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
So just realistically, so if you guys had just talked about waiving that for the farmers market for the rest of the year and beginning that in 2027 for farmers market, I think we're asking for the same thing. if you're gonna waive it with it being hundreds of people already. Because realistically, if this passes, right, I get a permit and I'm to serve this Saturday. Do I get off-duty police officers? How do I get, that's in 3 days. So it's a pretty, it seems bigger than just.
Right. And I was pushing this through to the commission so that maybe we could accommodate you all a little more, making the time change, because at that time, it was off the table anyway. There was no consumption. That is just going to be a leadership decision, I think.
So really, the permit is actually so that it can be taken out by a farmer's market or chamber.
Correct.
It's not act by individual vendors. It's their responsibility to comply with what's in the permit.
Correct.
So it really wouldn't go to the vendors unless they chose it. So that's their choice, how they handle that situation. So we're really just looking at what should the permit requirements state.
Right.
And then I'm with Matt, I'm just sitting here thinking, how many total officers on a given day, on a Saturday, do we even have on staff? 4, 5? Year to date?
2 to 3 patrols.
2 to 3 patrols. So, I mean, to designate 2 just to that event, that leaves our city completely, that wouldn't be smart, in my book. That's just not smart, when you only have a couple out on a given shift as it is. And from being a person that attends a whole lot of events, there's always 2 officers at every event that I'm at. Because typically there's alcohol being served. So.
May I ask one question?
Okay.
So
One quick question.
If we don't do alcohol, so we say we pull out because we're not going to pay the $600 a weekend to do it, is the city still going to require 2 officers to be there for the farmers market?
According to the chief, we will definitely be looking at that for next year, starting.
For next year, but for the rest of this year?
Yeah.
The chief has always made Main Street do it.
Yeah, Main Street is always.
We've always had to have that. We don't serve alcohol. We never had to. But we've always had to do that.
Which I think is also why we mentioned maybe, because we know the constraints on the number of police officers, maybe allowing security guards, 1 officer maybe on duty and security guards. That does help break down the cost a little bit more. We were just kind of curious if there's a variance option.
The variance is in there, but that's up to the chief of police. So really what we're addressing right now is the time on this ordinance.
Does the ordinance say it has to be in the police department, or does it just say security?
It says off-duty police department.
Because you're putting that in the regular
Are you
off-duty.
putting that in on-call?
So anybody's, we could be.
Just whoever picks it up.
Any Canyon police officer?
Or Randall County.
Or Randall County.
So what we would do, I can just use the Lone Guard as a good example. That's a cooperative thing that we do with Randall County, because staffing 6+ people in one event is pretty tough. Of course, it's also dependent on what the time is. Probably sometimes we could do it, but in that case, just logistically to make it easier, we just have 3 Randall County, or 2 Randall County, and I think 4 CPD, or it might be 3 and 3. Same thing with football games. We kind of split that one down the middle as well, just to make things a little bit easier. I can tell you my personal opinion on having 1 Canyon Police Department and 1 security is it's not a good idea to mix and match like that, especially because security may not understand all of the legal authority that we've got. And plus, we're going to want to rely on our own people with the same kind of tools that they've got available. But that's kind of a recipe for disaster in my opinion.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Are we confused about who is responsible for paying for the police officers?
No, the permit clearly states it's up to the event sponsor. So that would be the chamber, the farmers market. So that
So if they feel like that they have to pay, they're not understanding what it says.
Well, I think where that's coming from is it was discussed that maybe they could divide that cost between the vendors. But that's.
That wouldn't be.
I guess the point I was trying to make is that it hasn't been charged up to this point. The police chief wants it charged if alcohol's there. But my question is, if alcohol's not there, the rest of the year, will it be charged?
He did want them being a nonprofit. I don't know, but he wants to give them time to prepare for that.
And
The
that's what we're
alcohol-
asking for, is
yeah,
the same.
That alcohol triggered this whole conversation.
And I
he
get that,
didn't-
we're in the same situation, we've made our plans accordingly, and we're one entity versus 100 vendors.
Right, but all of that is
So-
up to the vendor sponsor. That's the bottom
And
line.
I get that, and we can talk to the board.
Yes.
But the question is, if we don't bring alcohol to the rest of them, will the city charge for security?
Not at this point,
I think
because.
we're looking at just changing what the permit requirements are beginning on this date moving forward.
Right.
Well, there's two separate things, Robin. There's a special event, and then there's the alcohol piece, which is what we're looking at.
Which is the time.
Right, the special event, there are some where the chief can require alcohol or not, where also be present. So we're leaning more on that special event with the volume of people now, that should probably
Be under that.
Under that.
Within our meeting with y'all, he said, I've been looking at requiring this beginning because it's gotten so big. So it's just the alcohol triggered the conversation that with that being added in, it's created a higher concern for him to be immediate.
Gretchen, when did the city first learn that alcohol is being served on the square?
We received a complaint, it was just a month or two ago.
Okay, so this is a reaction to us finding out that our special use permit, which requires a police officer to be present when alcohol is served, this is a response to that.
Yes.
And
So
on our.
had we known at the beginning of the farmer's market that alcohol was being served, we would require them to have a police officer present?
Yes.
Okay.
And the permit, the special event permit asked if alcohol will or will not be served. I went back 2 years. Last year was the first time that box was checked. And as I explained to them, with the letter being required to the property owner, that triggers us knowing what's going on, and we weren't getting one.
That makes sense.
Can I ask who signs off on event permits?
TABC, what?
On the city's event permits? What all
It's
departments?
a bunch of departments. It's police, planning and development, parks, public works.
And chief is the official signer.
And he noted on several that TABC would have to be contacted. And the permit on TABC for the special event permit, temporary permit that the vendor has to get, one of the first boxes on there is property owner letter required to be submitted with that. But the wrong people were signing that, so we weren't getting that. That's
What's that? Did you have a comment on that? No, that's all. So,
Well, as it relates to changing the ordinance to 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm all in favor. I move to approve.
have a motion second to approve ordinance number 1255. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. The motion passes. All right, with that, we will go to item number 8, discussion regarding proposed amendments to ordinance number 515, an ordinance prohibiting the possession or the drinking of any alcoholic beverage in any city park or city-owned building within the city of Canyon. Gretchen, go ahead.
This brought up another conversation that has been tumbling around for years with the city on allowing alcohol in the community center and any other city-owned property parks during games. My ask for all of you is in consideration of time. There's a lot of good information here. I found the information of how the city of Amarillo handles all of their permits. It would require a TABC certified bartender over the community center if we allowed alcohol. But basically what we're asking here on all of this information in the memo is if you're interested in changing it, right now it's prohibited. It's just simply prohibited. Sidewalk cafes are addressed in 1031, which again, it has to be blocked off and everything to serve alcohol. So if you are interested in us taking some of this information from like the city of Amarillo and putting together an ordinance to be considered to loosen that up a little bit, we'd be happy to do that at your direction.
Just right now, the basic is nothing in city facilities, nothing in parks. So Commissioner Potter wanted to open a beer and walk down the sidewalk, he would be allowed to do that. That is our option.
Not on the square.
Just, you can do it on the square, special event with Trump.
Right, it would change.
If it was if there was nothing happening, if it was generally wanted.
It does prohibit still the parks, like games
Yes.
and things. City of Amarillo still prohibits that.
Yeah, first youth events.
You know, my preference would be that we would allow it on city property with the permit and with security, and I think you pointed something out to that extent. I'm not in favor of just having an open container in the parks, in our community center without permit. I think Canyon is a family-friendly place. We pride ourselves in that. I get comments of that for the CAP. I get all kinds of comments that direction. And I think this takes us down, that would take us down a different road. I don't disagree. You know, alcohol is part of our society. The permits, the security, I'm good with that. But the other level, I don't think that's the place that we want to go.
Matt, I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Sure.
Have you read this ordinance?
I'm actually looking through it right now.
Look at section 1 and tell me, like, is that even enforceable by you guys? Because it's not an open container violation.
So section 1 of the memo or section 1 of?
Section 1 of the ordinance 515.
And it's an old ordinance.
1982.
Would you charge somebody with a violation of VCO on an open container with that if they just had an open container? Or is it gonna be like an MIC where you have to catch them in the condition they found drinking?
The one I'm looking at right now has to do with displaying stuff on sidewalks.
Keep going down. It's on typewriter, Matt. The ordinance on typewriter.
It's on
Page
the screen.
111.
Yeah, there it is, Matt. It's on screen. So, you know, it'd just be an ordinance violation. Section 1.
Oh, would we enforce that?
Yeah.
I would. I don't know if that answers that question. People drinking in the park, I personally would enforce that. Now, with a ticket or warning.
But it's not really an open container.
Well, if they're drinking and
It's a lot more like what Alvaro Canyon has, where you just can't even possess it.
Yeah, it looks, to me, it looks like, to me, I kind of read that as an open container, the possession of and the drinking.
Okay.
Yeah, I personally would.
So Commissioner, your thoughts, don't impine what,
I think people are violating that quite often. I don't have a problem with it. But that's just, I like City of Amarillo. I'm glad you researched that. I like the way that's laid out. I do think we restrict people using our, some of our city properties, such as the community center, like all around. I personally don't have a problem.
you know, I've personally seen issues with alcohol at pretty much every level, at social level, at a family level, and you know, I think we can take care of things at a specific event and with security. But I think to go down that road, you're just asking for problems in the park if you allow it. I really believe, and it's less family friendly. And I have had the chance to visit with a couple of folks about that and all too. You know, the atmosphere we have in Canyon, Texas right now.
So right now with the special use permit, can you drink in the park?
With a special use permit, with
I would say so.
the proper caveat.
With the special use permit, can you drink in the community center?
Not all the time.
Why is it different?
bringing it themselves.
Okay, that's allowed.
So, okay, you
That's by TABC.
You can BYOB
To where?
to
And
St.
you,
Edward Park.
and you have police presence there. so-
Yes.
That's all lawful from what we've looked at, Audrey, except when Gary does it.
Yeah, that's how nail salons and they're giving alcohol away.
No, oh,
so
no,
they don't even
no.
require to
Okay,
have
that's
it.
different.
So if you want, we can bring it. You can recommend changes if you want, or we can just leave it alone.
I would like to look at changes.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think we need to look at what's currently being done and align our practices to kind of what's already happening. And we talked about this a little bit, we don't want our police officers to start thinking they have to try and enforce things that's kind of been an allowable thing, but what is that? So I think that's what we need to determine is where is that line? What is appropriate based on what current practices have been, so that it aligns to that, and what are we okay with? Is that having a permit, or is it in certain areas that we're going to allow that at a certain point? I just don't think what our current ordinances are saying aligns with what the practice is currently in the town, and that's what we need to figure out how that aligns.
Matt, do you feel like people are drinking in the bars anyway?
We all kind of outlined different circumstances. I kind of had a certain vision in my mind. Somebody's just inside Paul Lindsay Park, just walking down the sidewalk drinking a beer. Like, no attempts to conceal it or anything like that. Like, it's just a wide open beer. I feel like I would stop. I can't really speak on what all the officers would do, but I know what I personally would do. I don't know that we're really getting dispatched to calls in the parks on over containers, where people are like after a softball game or something like that, where all the teams, the adult teams are out in the park drinking or anything like that. I don't really think we're getting too many calls on something like that. So I don't know, does that answer your question?
I just really think you're going to encourage that. You know, it would be here or there, or somebody go to the park, I'll go to the park and have a beer, but then it's also going to be a group that takes, a case of beer, and they're down there, and you've got kids over playing in one part of the park, and you've got the folks over here too, and I just don't think that's the atmosphere we want for our kids in the park. So, and I don't think, there's probably something said, if it's not broke, don't fix it, and I think we've got a good family-friendly atmosphere right now.
One question.
Yes.
Just on the back end, confirming when TABC license holders pull permits are moving forward, you guys are going to request to see the TEA or the FUN from TABC, and are you guys requiring like GL or liquor liability insurance with you guys as the certificate holder or the location, the city location? Are you guys considering having those things required when pulling permits? Because it was brought to our attention that there were some instances where people were selling alcohol to the public or distributing alcohol, but were not pulling their permits properly.
The letter is what's going to trigger us knowing who is out there by TABC. We don't govern TABC. That's a state.
No, but will you guys want to see the TEA, or will you guys want to have our GL or liquor liability aggregate insurance on file?
If it's your event, then liability will be
Talking about the vendor, Gretchen, a lot of times they have to do general liability as an alcohol provider.
Yeah.
So just talking a little bit about that.
But that's through TABC, not us.
No, it's not.
The insurance is directly through you, and 100% of the venues that we come to require that address or the DBA name to be listed as a certificate holder, just to protect the property where we're having that. So we do, I know all of us carry one of those on file too, and we can list the city, that specific location, and designate as certificate holder on those insurance policies, along with our TABC permit. Because like I said, we were being told that people aren't doing either of those.
Okay.
Let's take a little further look into that.
Okay.
'cause I'm already requiring your TABC permit number and what entity that's tied to. So that
I don't think
information.
they're required to have GL insurance issues.
Yeah,
I
so
think
we
have
may
a
start
deeper
getting that.
conversation on that later.
I don't know if we've got good enough guidance at this point.
Let Gretchen and I take a stab. The only thing, John Burns over facilities, the two we've talked about just on facilities, not like parks or anything like that, have been the community center and maybe the library. So we wanted to do book and wine events at the library. Those are the only two. I don't think we've really had much interest in CAP or anything like that. I mean, maybe City Hall, we probably should do that at City Hall too. But, or the police station or fire station. Those are the only two facilities I think that Gretchen and I and John have really talked about. Is there any major opposition to those? We'll hash out the park things. So I think that's enough guidance for Gretchen to help start constructing some changes. And we will definitely have Chief Brush involved.
Before I retire.
Is this your goal for retirement?
It is now.
It is now.
All right, item number 9, consider and take appropriate action on proposed 2026 property tax rate and setting a public hearing of the proposed property tax rate. Bo?
Yes, sir. The public hearing for the 2027 tax year tax rate is scheduled for August 18th. In order for us to publish that notice of the public hearing, we are required to include a recorded vote of approval or disapproval of the proposed tax rate. So that is what I'm seeking today. You've been provided some information about the tax rate. You have the new packet that I'm going to provide to you today. Oh, you handed it to me? Okay, on the first page, after the cover page, you see a very similar report that we've been looking at the past few meetings. In the blue, you have the comparison of property value and taxable property value. It's looking at 2% increase in taxable property value for the city. In the orange there, you've got the proposed tax rate for the 2026 tax year of 0.53413. That is a 4% increase to the tax rate. That does include a almost 4% decrease in the INS rate as more property has been added on to meet the debt service requirements, and also applying prior year over collection to the next year's tax rate. In the green, the first green one chart, you have the comparison of the proposed revenue for the proposed tax rate versus what was budgeted for the current year. So that's a 4% increase in property tax revenue. And that final chart there is looking at year-to-date as of June. So a 5% increase as of year-to-date, but we are still collecting tax through the end of the fiscal year. So that number will continue to rise, that percentage will always drop. The next page is going to be a key one. The very top there in the white, we're showing how we adjust taxable property value for our budget, so the number that we use and apply the proposed tax rate to come up with the budgeted revenue amount. But I really want to focus on under the orange heading. You see budgeted ad valorem tax rate calculation. The very first one in the white, you have the 2025 adopted tax rate. That's our current tax rate. Total of 0.5181. And then now we do have the calculated tax rates from Randall County. So the no new revenue tax rate would be a total of 0.49752. The voter approval tax rate would be a total of 51739. The next tax rate really doesn't have a name. It's just found in section 75.065 tax code. That is 0.53982. That is the highest tax rate that we could adopt. That could not be petitioned for election. Then we have the de minimis rate there in purple, a total of 0.54862. That is the highest tax rate we could adopt without automatically triggering an election. And then just for comparison, we have the 2025 M&O rate, but if we lower the INS rate to the current year, you can see what that tax rate would be, a 0.50658. And then the proposed tax rate there of 0.53413. And then that final column for all of those, you can see the increase or decrease in operating revenue that we would receive in the general fund compared to what is currently budgeted for this year. That's a lot, and that's a really key piece. And the no new revenue rate, voter approval tax rate, and de minimis rate will be included in the public notice for the public hearing. Any questions on that?
Am I seeing it on there, the increase in the tax rate over the no new revenue rate? That will show up as a notice in the paper?
Not in the paper, but whenever we move to adopt the final tax rate, it will be included in the motion. That would be a 7% increase over the no new revenue. And then in the ordinance to adopt the property tax rate, they want us to report percentage increase of the no new revenue M&O rate to the adopted M&O rate, which would be an 8% increase. What the increase that will be included in the public notice in the newspaper, it compares the current year tax rate to the proposed tax rate, which would be a 4% increase. There's several different ways that the state defines a tax rate increase. Moving on to the next page, we have included these calculated tax rates and compared them from year to year. And you can see on that chart, the solid blue is our adopted and the 2026 proposed tax rate, and where they have fallen in comparison to the no new revenue, voter approval, and de minimis tax rates. In the chart below that, you can see how much of the adopted tax rate. Orange was the INS rate, and green was the M&O rate for operations. And looking at the next page, these are the assessed property valuations straight from Pratt. You can see how they have been increasing for the last few years. Using their adjusted taxable value compared to last year, they're showing a 3% increase. This is the lowest property value increase we've had since 2019, when Lone Star was removed from our tax roll. Then on the next page, we'll look at a comparison of the average home value. In 2026, using that average home value with the proposed tax rate, that annual property tax payment will be $1,448. That's an increase of less than $90 for the year, or less than $8 a month. And again, that chart there shows that average homestead property property tax payment. The orange being what their payment amount going to INS, and the green going to operations. next page, we are comparing the tax rate to other cities. So we have cities here located in the Panhandle, other Texas cities with similar populations to Canyon, and 6 similar cities with similar taxable property values. You can see the blue line with the dots, that is our current tax rate for 2025, and the orange one is our proposed, and where that would fall in line with these other cities' 2025 adopted tax rates. Revenue from other sources other than the levy. And the final page is just a comparison of the tiers, how that property has value has been increasing. You can see despite 2% citywide increase for the city, the property within the tier zone increased by 29%. Go up 53982 without being petitioned for election. We could go up to 0.54862 without it automatically triggering election. I will also state next year we do have another legislative session. Property tax is always a key discussion point. We kind of look at what was discussed in the prior session, kind of gauge what could potentially happen in the next session. Something that had been brought up in the last session was the elimination of the dividends rate. If that were to occur, the highest tax rate we could adopt is that voter approval tax rate, which in this case, for example, would only be an increase in operating revenue of just over $120,000. That's if they keep it at 3.5% increase from the prior year. They also discussed lowering that to 2.5%.
Move the proposed tax rate not to exceed 0.53413 per $100 valuation, including a maximum M&O rate of 0.41795 and maximum INS rate of 0.11618, be placed on the agenda of the City Commission meeting scheduled for Tuesday, August 18th, 2026.
Have a motion and second to set a maximum tax rate. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. The motion passes.
Can I get a verbal, please?
Certainly.
For the record, vote.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
I move the public hearing for the proposed tax rate for 4:30 p.m. August 18th, 2026.
Have a motion and second to set the public hearing for August 18th, 2026. All in favor, I guess we need public vote on this. Okay, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Consider and take appropriate action on ordinance number 1256, an ordinance of the City of Canyon, Texas, removing real property from the ETJ of the City of Canyon on petition of landowners and reducing the ETJ of the City of Canyon in accordance with such action and providing for an effective date.
Yes, sir. This item is pretty familiar to you guys, so I'll move through it pretty quickly. The city recently received a petition for a lease from the ETJ under section 42.102 of the Texas Local Government Code. The petition concerns approximately 10 acres located at 18901 Helium Road, owned by Stronghold Custom Cabinets LLC. City staff and city attorney reviewed the petition, corporate formation documents, and the documentation establishing signature authority. Based on that review, staff determined that the petition contains sufficient documentation to support the release request. Section 42.105C of the Texas Local Government Code requires municipalities to release qualifying properties when the landowner satisfies the application petition requirements. So to clearly document this, we are proposing ordinance number 1256 for consideration that will formally adjust the ETJ for the city. Adoption of the ordinance would release the property described in the petition from the City of Canyon's ETJ.
Motion second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Item number 11, consider and take appropriate action on West Texas Crossing Development Agreement. Destin?
Yes, sir. So this agenda item is to consider a development agreement with Sad Monkey Development LLC for the proposed West Texas Crossing Commercial Business Park located at Kim Road. The agreement establishes the responsibilities of both the city and the developer for the public infrastructure needed to support that development. Specifically identifies the improvements that must be constructed, establishes the timing and sequencing of that construction. So the biggest component within here is the design and construction of a sanitary sewer lift station and the necessary force main and gravity main that's needed to support the commercial business park located over there on Kim Road. The developer agreement also covers responsibilities with regards to water distribution systems, streets and paving, sidewalks, and any other necessary elements such as drainage or things of that nature. Pretty standard development agreement. Developer is responsible for all costs with regards to the development of this commercial business park. Exhibit D on the supplemental agreement. It is a supplemental agreement in case the developer were to be awarded an EDA grant, which you guys may remember we applied for on their behalf. Preliminary indications are that they're not going to be awarded an EDA. There's a lot of transition that was happening in EDA. We lost our regional EDA director who was based in Austin, so the request actually ended up going to Atlanta. So that EDA grant probably got lost a little bit in the transition and the shuffle there. So early indications are it's not going to be awarded. So as such, the supplemental agreement that's Exhibit B just won't be utilized, won't be necessary. Approval of the agreement will then constitute approval of still got to go through all the development review process with the concept plan, platting, zoning, going through all the subdivision regulations and things like that. Development agreement specifically calls out all our development documentation that will have to be